Okay, well, good afternoon. Glad to be here. I was working on this presentation up until about 30 minutes ago. I could probably talk for 2 hours about this, and it's really hard to pare it down into something short and sweet, but I'm going to try and cover a lot of topics, some similar to what Mark covered, and just kind of give you our perspective on what happened here on May 20th. And the other events that happened. We had tornado events that had extended severe weather the 18th, 19th, and 20th, and the 29th, 30th, and 31st, and with some significant days in there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a lot of different topics here. So I'm going to my objective, kind of like Mark's, is to just kind of show you how we incorporated social media into our severe weather operations. I'm going to focus mainly on the May 20th tornado event, but may also talk about some of the other significant events that happened during that time period. Essentially, the same setup that we had in operations on the 20th is what we used on the 18th, the 19th, the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st. So it's pretty much the same for all of those. Mark showed a chart similar to this, and I'll just kind of show you. I didn't get the stats for our Twitter put together for this, but we had a lot of new Facebook likes. These are the daily likes starting May 18th and continuing up until early June. May 18th, 19th, and 20th was a 3-day period of severe weather, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Of course, you see a huge spike there on May the 20th. That's the day that the Moore tornado happened with 5,400 new likes. That kind of tapered off in the weeks or the days afterwards, and then we had another big high-end severe weather event coming on the last few days in May. So we saw it spike again with over 3,000 new likes on the 29th, and then our big event of that period was on May 31st. We had 3,200 new likes. So that I was trying to keep up with it during the event, and I just completely lost track. Twitter, I think we probably doubled our followers. I'm not exactly sure of the numbers, but it was not as dramatic number-wise increase, but the percentage was way up there. So it was very, very impressive. I wish I would have thought to do the reach or the viral reach and the unlikes, but I'll put that together too, because I think that'd be interesting to look at. I'm going to focus mainly on the event that affected the central Oklahoma area, the Oklahoma City metro area here on May the 20th. This is when we had an EF5 tornado that struck the city began in Newcastle, Oklahoma, then moved through parts of South Oklahoma City and the city of Moore. This got a lot of national attention. Obviously, we had a fairly long-track tornado, a violent tornado that moved through the densely populated area at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had 23 fatalities from the tornado. 7 of those were school children, and numerous others in different locations around the area. The Moore Medical Center, medical facility not too far north of us here in Norman, took a direct hit with over 350 people inside, not a single injury because of preparedness that went on there. So this was a significant event. We had an EF4 tornado the day before that was very near, actually affected parts of Norman and then moved over into eastern parts of the Oklahoma City metro area over around Shawnee and Bethel Acres. And we had severe weather also on the 18th. I'm gonna focus mainly on the 20th, though, to kind of talk about how we organized ourselves. But keep in mind, this was the same basic organization that we had during all of those events. Like Mark, I kind of wanted to show you our staffing. One of many misperceptions about Norman is that we have an unlimited pool of people that we can pull on. There's a fire pole that people slide down, and we have students and researchers and PhDs that come in and issue the warnings for us. I can assure you that nothing is further from the truth. This is kind of how we were staffed during the day on May the 20th. That just kind of shows who did what. Dave is the MIC, that's me, the WCM. Now, I didn't do info coordinator job the entire 16 hours. Nobody did these entire jobs the entire time. There were lots of other duties going on. But I did want to let you see that there were lots of 12-hour days, 16-hour days. John Kurtz, one of our forecasters, came in at 3 p.m. on Monday the 20th. Didn't leave until 7 a.m. the next Tuesday morning. I passed him coming and going, leaving the building. We were fortunate to have our ITO on station during the entire event, and that was extremely beneficial for us as we developed preliminary tornado tracks for first responders. Our webmaster and service hydrologist was here. So we had, this is, a total of, 11 people, and really, 7 of those are meteorologists, and really the core of the warning operations was done by a couple of people, the actual, pushing the button on warn gen, but it was obviously a team effort. So we did not have 25 people in here working. We did this with essentially our core staff. And keep in mind, this was the 3rd day in a row of severe weather, so a lot of the people that you see here that worked 12, 14, 16 hours had done the same thing on Saturday and on Sunday. So I just want to point out that we are a very special office, but not in the way that a lot of people think. We do not have an unlimited supply of people to come in here and do the work for us. So that's all I'll say about that. So here's kind of a picture of the operations area during the core of the event. You can see the big TV screen in the middle. That's a large tornado going through Moore, and that's essentially our staffing right there. Kind of going from right to left, Scott was our primary warning forecaster on the Moore storm. We sectorized warnings, so he essentially had that one storm to himself. Ryan Barnes had all the other storms. We had multiple tornadic storms going on over parts of the area, and some of the other staff that was there. So that's kind of the layout, and there were a few more people in the back of the room. They were observing and doing some other things, but that's how we handled the event with that staffing right there. I'm going to talk about our position that we've kind of named it here, Information Coordinator. This is a screen capture from a video. There was a activity going on in the hazardous weather test bed next door to us, and the person that captures video for that came over and captured video from our operations, and that's kind of a screen capture showing the Information Coordinator workstation with Hootsuite and Twitter and other things that were up there. So really this position is very similar to what Mark talked about at Fort Worth, only this one kind of combines a couple of different functions. The Information Coordinator manages really the outgoing flow of information out of the office, and the goal of this position is to ensure a consistent message across all platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, NWS chat, or media interviews. The job of the Information Coordinator, this is another angle from that same day, is I was sitting in that chair for part of the event, and really my job was just to listen to everything that was going on in the office, what's on television, what are the forecasters talking about, what are the concerns, what's the new and upcoming threat that we're faced with, absorb it, filter it, condense it down, there's a lot of verbs there, summarize it, explain it, and then pump that out in as many different ways as we can, mainly Twitter and Facebook and NWS chat. So I'm in my role when I was here as the Information Coordinator, I'm not really making a lot of warning decisions or coming up with original information. I'm just kind of absorbing everything that's going on in the room and passing along and sharing information that I think is relevant or important or that's good to be shared outside the office. And sometimes the information would go solely on chat, sometimes it would go everywhere at once almost. So it just depended on the information that was there. There was a lot of discussion on the social media forum about how Norman was able to do this, and we saw how Fort Worth was able to do it. It's a very similar situation. As Information Coordinator during these events, this one person handled every bit of social media. One person did every tweet, every Facebook post, most of the NWS chat activity, and when we weren't doing that, we were also briefing emergency managers, talking to public school systems, giving them advice on whether to hold their school buses, talking to university emergency managers, and doing media interviews all in between, and also assisting with critical decisions within the office. So the one person was doing all the social media, but they were also doing lots of other things too. So I wanted to point out that even with the volume of activity we had on social media, there was still a lot of other stuff going on in this one position. I broke it down by hour. Mark did his in smaller segments, but this is May 20th, and this is our Facebook post per hour, starting at 5 o'clock that morning and going until about 8 o'clock in the evening. Started off kind of slow in the morning, but as we ramped up to the event, then we started posting more frequently. The tornado that hit more developed just before 3 p.m., so we see a pretty dramatic ramp up in our Facebook posts about 7 in the hour preceding the tornado's development. And then we did a lot of Facebook posts as the tornado was ongoing in that 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. time frame. Most of those were done during the lifetime of the tornado. The tornado developed around 2:56 p.m. and ended around 3:35 or something like that. So that's kind of the lifetime of the tornado. We kept the Facebook posts going into the evening. 6 p.m. I don't know what happened. Maybe that's when the pizza got here or something. I'm not sure, but we kind of slacked off there a little bit. But we had severe weather ongoing for hours after this, and we were also posting things after the storm. So it wasn't just pre-storm stuff. It was also post-storm information we were sharing. Here's a similar graphic for Twitter. This is beginning at 10 a.m. on May 20th and going until 8 p.m. So between 10 and 11 o'clock, we tweeted 4 times. That's kind of how you look at the graph there. Things really picked up around noon when we started really ramping up the urgency and the frequency of the tweets and the information that were going out. In the hour or two preceding the development of the tornado, we peaked at almost a tweet every 2 or 3 minutes there in the 1 to 2 p.m. time frame, just a variety of information. In that time frame, we were offering advice about, don't get in your car, don't get under overpasses, just kind of last minute safety call to action type information. And in that 2 to 3 p.m. time frame, it was very much storm tracking, almost volume scan by volume scan. This storm is intensifying quickly. People in Newcastle need to watch this storm closely. And then it kind of slacked off again as we went into the evening. But Twitter was a little bit more consistent with a stronger peak there immediately before and during the tornado, and kind of tailed off there toward the end. And as Mark mentioned, this was not random. We have, at least informally, what I call a social media strategy on days like this. On both days, the big days that we had, May 20th and May 31st, we decided as a team here at the office what the key themes are going to be and what the office message was. The thing we were most worried about on May 20th was schools and the unusually early time that these tornadoes would be impacting the metro area, school dismissal time. So that was a key theme, and we used social media to hammer home that point in the hours leading up to that with different types of safety information leading up to the event. May 31st, that was a different event, and the focus on that was motorists, and we could talk a lot about that, but we recognized the potential for people needing to get in their vehicles and think they need to drive away from the tornado, so we focused our social media message on that. So, and this is a steady buildup in the days and hours and minutes leading up to an event. It's not quite like a detailed playbook of what we do when, but we certainly want to share kind of the ready, set, go mentality as we build up to an event, what you can do to get ready now. Here's some reminders about safety rules. Here's links to our YouTube videos about tornado sheltering and weather radio programming or whatever. And then that gets more frequent and more urgent in the hours and the minutes leading up to the event. There's some various things that we tried, experimented with. Some of these were successful, maybe they're best practices. One of the things that we noted from Fort Worth's success during the Granbury event, and we've thought about it in the past as well, is time stamping the tweets. People like to retweet information, and nothing is more frustrating than seeing people retweeting an urgent message about a tornado emergency in the city of Moore 36 hours after the event has happened. So we started on any time-sensitive material, or most everything we tweeted eventually had a timestamp on it, and it doesn't take much time at all to do that. We used images to help enhance the messaging on both Facebook and Twitter. We know that people respond more readily to pictures, and we had lots of people who told us that social media was the only way that they had to get weather information during this event. They were in their shelter, their power was out, their cable was out, whatever. So we just would take pictures of the TV screens of the tornadoes and tweet those and put those on Facebook. We're involved in a project here to prepare tornado track maps as the tornado is occurring and provide those as quickly as possible to first responders, emergency management, FEMA, and that was a big success out of both of these events. That's a whole other webinar probably, but we also provided those on social media, and that was a big success. And as Mark mentioned, we also were kind of sharing information on multiple platforms at once. We shared NWS chat info on Facebook and Twitter. So there were several cases where we would type up like a kind of a miniature mesoscale update in NWS chat, and then either in segments on Twitter or as a whole on Facebook, we would just share that almost verbatim. Somewhat technical, but it got a lot of likes and a lot of shares. So I think people appreciated that. So again, on May 20th, the key theme was schools and school safety and concerns about people being ready to deal with. We don't usually see tornadoes in the 2 to 4 p.m. time frame. They do happen, but generally the peak is later than that. So this was a tweet that we sent out at 6:50 that morning, and a Facebook post that went with it a little bit later on, focusing on the school systems. Attention school systems, parents and students who may be dealing with dangerous storms at school dismissal time, plan ahead. And then the bottom one is a Facebook post, and one of the things that we'll do a webinar on eventually is about retweets, how to retweet and how to be retweeted. We didn't do it in the tweet up there. We did it on another one that morning. But if you ask someone to retweet you, they will usually do it. And if you ask someone on Facebook to share it, they will usually do it. That particular post got shared over 2,100 times just that morning, and there were other ones comparable to that through the day. You don't want to do that too often. You don't want to say, please share everything that you post, or please retweet everything that you tweet. But if you do it when it counts, it can make a big difference in getting that message spread to as many people as possible. We were not just dealing with one storm. We had multiple tornadic storms going on at one time. So this is a radar capture from about the time the tornado is getting ready to move into the metro area there. That far northern storm is the Moore tornado, and we had other tornadic supercells down the dry line into south central and southwest Oklahoma and down into our western North Texas counties. We had multiple tornado warnings in effect. So one person, the same person that posted on Facebook about if you're in the Oklahoma City metro area, here's some immediate tornado shelter guidelines. A minute before had just posted about a tornado warning well south of the Oklahoma City metro. So it wasn't just one storm, it was multiple storms, and maintaining a balance between covering the storm in our backyard here versus covering the storms down south, that was a challenge sometimes. And I'll be honest, we didn't provide nearly as much blow-by-blow information for the tornadoes in Stevens County as we did for the ones in the Oklahoma City metro area, but we tried very, very hard, and we did get positive comments about the work that we did with that. Like I said before, one of the things we know is people respond to pictures. So somebody was in the office taking pictures. So that top picture is me with my iPhone taking a picture of the screen on channel 5 right as the tornado first developed at about 2:56. And then the bottom right-hand corner image that you see there is the tweet that I sent out. So that's the picture I took, and that's the tweet that went out. Again, just to try to give people some visual confirmation that this is actually happening, and I did try to spread it around among the TV stations so we weren't, just promoting just one of them, but it really came down to whoever had the best picture at the time. I wanted to take a picture, so we just do the best we can. But we think that we just know from past experience people are more likely to respond if they actually see it than if they just, if it's text. So we didn't do that a lot, but we did it both on Facebook and Twitter throughout the event. One of the things, like Mark said, is really trying to anticipate what questions people would have and provide answers. Less than 30 minutes, probably less than 20 minutes after the tornado dissipated east of Moore, we had published this tornado graphic, the red line there with the white circle around it. That's a project we're working on. We had sent that in 2 different pieces to the emergency managers in the affected area while the tornado was in progress. But then afterwards, we decided to share it on social media, and this became the map or the track, the preliminary track that was used by every media source that we knew of. Well, we instantly anticipated from listening to media coverage and monitoring social media, gosh, some of the same places that got hit on May 3rd, '99 got hit by this tornado. So thankfully, we had our ITO in the office who helped put these graphics together, and our webmaster, and we had the shape files and everything from May 3rd, '99, and we just did a graphic that combined the two like this. Before anybody really asked for it, and we anticipated the need, anticipated the questions, and provided the answers in advance. And this, it probably generated some media calls, but like Mark said, I guarantee it probably cut down on a lot of calls too. So every piece of information that you can put out there, it's going to save you some time probably in the long run. Another semi-controversial thing we did that I'm very comfortable with is providing a preliminary rating of the tornado, just based on what we saw on television. Now that's, maybe that's not acceptable all the time and for everybody and everywhere, but with 3 television stations with helicopters flying low for a couple of hours after the event, we felt fairly confident of providing an at least EF4 rating on the tornado. And again, we may never do that again, but we did it in this case, anticipating the questions and trying to provide answers in advance. Now, we saw a lot of discussion on the social media forum. People were very complimentary and very positive about what we did in our office, and I'm sure likewise what Fort Worth did for the Granbury event. But we got lots of comments, lots of questions about, well, that's fine, you can do that in Norman, but we can't do that here. And here's a list of reasons why people have mentioned they can't do it in their office. It's only experimental. Maybe we'll do this when it becomes official. It doesn't matter to me if it's experimental or not. I mean, if you're not successful when it's experimental, it's not going to be successful when it becomes official. Not enough buy-in from the staff. Maybe it's only 1 or 2 people in the office are active on social media. We don't have as many people. I've already talked about that. If we do it for this tornado event, people are going to expect us to do it every time. We don't have enough people to dedicate the resources to social media. And why should we bother? We don't have that many followers in our area anyway. Well, I'm not going to, hopefully some of what Mark and I talked about addresses some of these. I can tell you it's just my opinion, and I'm biased by being here, but there's 121 other Weather Service offices in the country that could do this exact same thing if you want to. If the same event happened in your CWA, in your office, if you want to do the social media, if you want to have the presence, if you want to provide the amount and the quantity and the quality of information, it can be done. It may require some changes within the office on how you prioritize and do things. And anyway, I won't say any more about that, but I'm just saying you can do it if you want to. Here's a few comments that we got from people. I mean, to me, this makes it worth it. The top one, we do not have cable or an antenna, so this is how I'm keeping up with what's to come. Thank you so much. Please keep it up, and don't wonder anymore if it's working or useful, because it is. Here's somebody from South Central Oklahoma. The media started focusing on the metro area, and she says, your post kept us informed because the news stations were focused on the metro. We're in a small town in South Central Oklahoma. Thank you. Couple more here. This lady was passing through or on a kind of a mini vacation with her husband, and she says, this is the post that I read Monday morning that made my husband and I decide to return home several hours early from our long weekend trip. We ended up driving up I-35 through Moore about 2 to 3 hours before the tornado hit. Thank you for keeping us weather aware. And then finally, this one, I want to thank you for all that you do. I live in Moore and paid close attention to your warnings. I pulled my children out of school at 11 yesterday. I want to thank you because I have my babies alive and safe, because you stayed on top of the warning. Words cannot express my gratitude. Thank you, thank you. So to me, if one person gets a tweet, if one person gets a Facebook post that made a difference to them on that day or any of these days, then it's worth the bleary eyes and calloused fingers from typing and tweeting away for hours on end. And it's we'll do it again. If we have a severe weather event that's a commitment to us. If we're going to call in people to issue warnings during a higher-end severe weather event, we're going to call in somebody to man the social media desk, the information coordinator position. So, okay, that's all I have slide-wise. I'll be happy to take any questions that anybody has.
Hey, Rick, this is Chris in Great Falls. Hey, given the magnitude of the event and the number of events that you guys dealt with, was fatigue ever a concern like it is for warning operations?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, you can only do so much of that. On May 20th, I did it for a few hours and then got diverted off into doing media, and then someone else came in and did it. And in an event like this, I think you need to, if you have the staffing and the personnel to do it, I think you probably need to consider rotating people in and out of this position just like you would a warning forecaster. You don't want a warning forecaster sitting there for 8 hours issuing warnings. I don't think you want somebody doing this for that long either, if you have that capability. That's a good point.
Rick, this is Frank in Charleston. I got a question actually relating to May 31st. I know you didn't touch on it too much, but how did you all handle the situation where you had the tornado warnings and the flooding going on both in the metro area at the same time?
Well, that was a challenging event. We had multiple hazards going on, and we just kind of did it. I mean, we were the plan that day was we knew there was a flash flood threat. We had a flash flood watch. We were also concerned about softball-size hail and strong winds and tornadoes. So the main hazard was tornadoes, and we were certainly keeping up with that. But I think we were fairly quick to recognize the transitioning threat there with the flooding. So we were just, tweet about the tornadoes, then tweet about the flooding, and then just go back and forth. So it was still one person doing all of that for most of that event, but that was a much more challenging event, and we could do a whole other session on that. We had all kinds of other circumstances with that event too, with safety messages and things like that. But that was a much more challenging event from every perspective than the May 20th event was.
Hey, Rick, this is Pete Wolf. Your presentation is excellent, along with Mark's, and I'd like to share them with our staff. I don't know if this was mentioned at the start or not, but are they being recorded that I can share them?
Tim, you can chime in, but I know that the presentations will be available. I'm not sure about the recording.
Yeah, they're both being recorded.
Yeah,
Okay.
keep your fingers crossed. There's 2 recordings going on, so hopefully one of them will come out.
Sometimes you never know if it's going to work until it's too late. So.
Hey, Rick,
I appreciate that. It really is very helpful information.
while I'm unmuted, this is Corey. I've got a question for you.
Okay.
You mentioned on the one slide with why can't we do this at our office, and I think the second bullet maybe was oh yes, you're going back there. You'll help me. Not enough buy-in from the staff, and I tweeted this, but I think pretty much everybody on the call, or a great majority of us are into social media, or we get it. That tends to be who wants to come to these things, or people that want to be convinced. But have you had any maybe notable instances in your office where someone really hadn't bought into it, and you got them to change their mind, and if so, how? And if you don't have a good example, maybe someone else on the call, Mike. So I'm really curious as to what does it.
I can't really talk about that because there are like 10 of them in the room here with me. So, no, we've had. I'm pleased with the buy-in that we had. It's not 100%. Just like GraphiCast and every other new thing that we've done in the Weather Service, people have different levels of comfort. Some people do it all the time anyway, and they're not at work, so they're comfortable. We have some people that are much more comfortable with Facebook versus Twitter, or vice versa. So it's not universal, and I think what helps is people seeing successes like this, and then just giving people an opportunity to try it in a safe environment. I would never expect someone brand new to social media to sit down and do what we did on any of these big events, but just a little tweet here and there, or a Facebook post here and there, to be quite honest, I'm happy with what we have here. I mean, we could always use more people being engaged and involved in it, but it'll happen.
Thanks, Rick.
Hey, Rick, go ahead.
Dan in Wichita.
Hi.
I want to second what Pete said. Great job by you, David, Rick, Mark, Greg, Tom. Great work on all those days. I have a couple questions. First, it was kind of regard to after hearing what Great Falls said. Have you ever thought about possibly sectorizing tweet, Facebook responsibilities during some of these larger events? I know you're trying to do it all, but just like warning, sometimes it becomes almost too much to handle. That was my first question. And the second one is the layout. Have you tested the layout of your operations? What's the best location for that individual to be in terms of where they are in relation to the warning forecaster? Are they getting that information? I notice you don't have your any of that on your SA board up there, so the rest of the staff may not be seeing what you're posting. I'm wondering how you're handling that. And my final question is, if you would maybe go down, do you have something for like a social media backup?
Wow, those are all great questions. Hope I can remember what the first one was. Let's see. Sectorizing. That's something I never thought about until this, and we were probably I was probably overloaded or very close to being overloaded on the 31st, to be quite honest, and we probably could have used some sectorization at that point. For a variety of reasons, it almost got to be too much there for a while with the flooding and the tornadoes, and seeing lines of cars on TV sitting in the path of these tornadoes that were coming, and all kinds of things, lights flashing in the office, and so there would be value in that. If we did this again over a prolonged period, we would have to consider that. One of our issues, well, you can do this from any workstation. This is a picture of our operations area, and that the old guy with my hair is much grayer after these past 11 days. That's our information coordinator workstation. That wasn't put there strategically. It wasn't put there for a situational awareness reason or anything. The rest of the office is very much designed around that central display at the front with all the workstations facing. This is the one position in the office who has their back to everything else. And it's not designed that way on purpose. That's just where it ended up, that workstation being. If this is going to continue to be a position, and I think it will, then we may need to look at relocating that or integrating that. Of course, anybody at any of those workstations, those AWIPS workstations with a PC, can do social media too, but that's during a big event. That's almost where the information coordinator is stationed. So this is not the ideal design, but that's just kind of how it is right now. It worked out on May 30th. This is from May 20th, this picture, but on May 31st, the two warning forecasters ended up sitting right there in those two seats behind me. So that really helped. I didn't have to listen as hard across the room to get information about upcoming warning decisions or concerns or storm locations or ask questions of them. They're right there. So that worked out well. It just kind of happened that way. The third question is a huge thing that we have to consider in the Weather Service, is the service backup aspects of this. There were, I don't know, a handful of times over this stretch of days where we at least made contact with our backup office, and as lights were flickering and things like that, I mean, we never turned it over, but had we turned over service, had we gone into service backup, the social media might have stopped completely at that point. So we have to work the social media into our service backup plans. To me, that's one of the easier things to do. It would be much easier for us to do social media for Tulsa or Fort Worth than it would be for us to do their grids. because you could do it, if you had internet, that's all you need, and you could do it. But we really need to think about that, and that's something I think that, I've seen some discussion of that on the forum and things like that, but that's a huge thing that we really need to consider is the aspect, if people come to expect this and are expecting this information as part of our services, we can't just say, well, sorry, the lights went out or the phone line got cut and we can't do it. I mean, we somehow or another we have to continue doing it even in backup. That's great questions.
Hey, Rick, this is Tim. I got two questions. One came off of Twitter, and they wanted to know, when you do LSR, does one person do them all, or does a group of people, and do they handle social media reports differently than your regular spotter reports when you're doing the LSRs?
It depends on the event. A lot of times there's one person doing LSRs. There might be more than one on a day like this. And it doesn't really matter where the report comes from. If we think it's a valid report, we'll LSR it. I would like to start including social media specifically in the LSRs when it comes from there, just to highlight that and maybe let people know that's where we got it from. But if it's a valid report, it gets LSR'd pretty much. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. The other question I have for you or Mark, we talked about Facebook, we talked about Twitter, but you guys both also have a YouTube channel. Did you post anything to YouTube related to the weather events during or after the events?
I'll speak first and let Mark. We did. We used the YouTube channel to publish what we used to call our multimedia weather briefings, our PowerPoint slideshows narrated with the information, and we did lots of those during the event. The one that we did on May the 20th, I forgot how, I think it got 20,000 views or something like that. It was widely shared, and it was even highlighted in news and media stories in the days after it as being something that sparked action among a lot of people because of the mention of schools and specific information. So we use the YouTube channel for that. We also have some canned YouTube videos, narrated slideshows essentially about tornado safety, different aspects of tornado safety, ways to get information, how to take shelter. We try to keep them short, but we use those leading up to these events to kind of in that get ready phase, kind of let people know, hey, don't forget where will you go if there's a tornado this afternoon? Check out this video to see. We have some of our spotter training stuff on there too to show people, what a wall cloud looks like, what a tornado looks like. So we used it a lot. I'd like to be able to use it more and do a lot more frequent video updates during the event, but that just didn't happen.
Yeah, hey, Rick, Stephen Springfield. I have a question on as you were expanding your social media presence, can you give us some hints on what you saw the office put less resources into during severe weather?
Hold on. Okay, Steve, 1 second. I think Mark was going to answer his part of the YouTube question.
Well, this is a better question, but as far as our YouTube, we're not quite there yet. We've got a couple of people that are kind of trying out some software. We did it a little bit just to get the word out beforehand, but we didn't use a whole lot of the YouTube channel just yet. So we're slightly behind there, just trying to work out some kinks.
Okay. And Steve, your question, I think that's the issue a lot of offices are facing. One of the practical things that we've done to allow some time for this is we used to spend a considerable amount of time on issuing short-term forecasts. We kind of renamed them regional weather discussions. Sometimes we would issue them hourly, sometimes more frequently before or during weather. We really, the usage of that product is very limited, and that was a kind of a time-consuming task for our short-term desk on a lot of days where, there's just not a lot to say, but there was some expectation that they do that semi-routinely. So we pretty much just eliminated that. We don't do that anymore at all. The office is very focused on finding efficiencies and finding ways to streamline the grid production and editing process, and trying to get out of this habit of sitting at that desk for 8 hours, because that's what shift you're on, and staring at the grids and tweaking things like that. On most of these days, most severe weather days, all that's done in a very short period of time, leaving the resources free to do these other things.
Yeah, and Steve, I would answer that question the same way. It all comes down to what's the priority at the moment. Is it more of a priority to get something out on chat, on Twitter, on Facebook, than to fix that 1 hour grid or something like that, or the short-term forecast? Or it just all comes down to what's the biggest priority and what's your biggest bang for the buck. And when you got tornadoes and severe weather on the ground, that seems to take the priority, and make sure you can amplify the message from there.
Hey, Rick, this is Eric in Binghamton. I had a question on kind of your philosophy as an office on posting to Facebook and Twitter. I was thinking back to the graphic that you showed where you had a number of Facebook posts per hour, and a couple of those hours you had more posts to Facebook than you did Twitter, and then other hours you had more to Twitter. Just here in Binghamton, I know we seem to do more stuff to Twitter as like a rapid-fire type of posting, and we kind of hold back on Facebook. Is there a certain philosophy you guys have, like, this is definitely for Twitter, or this is definitely for both, or is it, I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on that.
Not really. I mean, it may depend on the person, but I was not working as smart as I probably could have on these events, because I don't think I did a single cross post to Twitter and Facebook. It was type something in Twitter and then type something in Facebook. And I mean, a lot of the content was the same. If you go back and look at, blow by blow, which ones were shared on which, I mean, there is no real strategy for this type of information definitely only goes on Facebook, or vice versa. I mean, just about anything that we did could go on either one. It's just the character limits that you have on Twitter. So there was not really any strategy involved in what went where. And if we did this again tomorrow, we'd probably do a lot more Hootsuite, cross-posting, and things like that when possible. Because a lot of the Facebook posts even were very short tweet-like messages that were very fast, 332 tornado crossing this highway and things like that would have very easily lended themselves to just doing both at one time.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Rick, this is Jared in Grand Rapids. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I have a question concerning basically the preparedness. When it comes up to the event and you guys know you're having possibility of a large tornado outbreak, hail producers, and so forth, it's not just the message itself, but also the quality of the message. Let's say like the maps that you guys create, they're excellent maps. What we typically do is we're looking at the SPC outlooks and getting a good idea where we might have our severe weather location or located. But what I'm finding is a lot of people are interested in those localized maps. So what I'm looking at is the KMZ files that the SPC produces, and we're putting them into Google Earth and kind of zooming into the location. And we actually, or I created a image on Facebook and did the snippet tool and kind of cut it out and made it personalized for the southwest lower Michigan area, and it turned out to be one of the highest shares and highest liked items that we have in our Facebook period. I'm wondering if you guys have had any comparison on that, whether you've used national or localized maps and whether that made a difference, and also the timing of when you post it, like let's say 7 a.m. versus 5 p.m., when maybe the majority of people would be home as opposed to maybe 12 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yeah, those are great questions. I know people one of the things I think that we found out of this that we're going to be working with all of the other members of the integrated warning team here is the consistency of the messaging and some of these maps and graphics. That's way too big of a topic for the time we have here, but I know people on Facebook and Twitter appreciate the maps. We always do our own locally. I don't think we ever almost never post an SPC graphic or anything from a national center. It's always, ours locally produced and kind of fine-tuned for our particular area. This graphic here is one that we did that morning of the 20th, and it doesn't say slight, moderate, high, anything like that. It just identifies the threat areas and the peak threat areas for tornadoes. So everything that we do, almost everything we do is locally produced in the WFO. And what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
It was the timing of the post. Have you guys ever, dug into how many likes or shares that you've got? Let's say if a lot or a majority of the people in town work maybe an 8 to 4, 8 to 5 job, are you finding that your morning posts, let's say you have a tornado event on the 20th that was coming up, and you posted a message to say, okay, this is the setup for today, we might have tornadoes, and you posted that at 6 or 7 a.m., are you finding that you're getting a lot more likes as if you posted it then as opposed to maybe 12 in the afternoon right before the outbreak started?
We haven't really dug into that, and I think we're going to have some future training maybe on how to do that a little bit more. I need to learn some more about how the analytics work and dive in and do that. And I pay some attention to that if we're doing things for Awareness Week or, just more generic posts. But on a day like this, we didn't worry too much about it. It was pretty much a stream of information. I like to try to post something and get something out before people head out the door to work that morning if they're checking it on their phone or when they're leaving for work or whatever, and try to get some good detailed information. I think this post that you see on the screen here came out probably in that 7 a.m.-ish time frame. I can't remember, but we try to hit that on a day like this. But on days like these, it was pretty much just a stream of information without any regard to targeting the times or anything. It was pretty much just tell people what we know when we know it.
Okay, thanks.